You're listening to This Week in No Code plus AI, with weekly episodes sharing the latest advancements of AI, plus exclusive interviews, founders using these tools. So without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome to This Week in No Code plus AI. I'm your host, JJ Englert, and I'm here with another exciting week of This Week in No Code plus AI. We are bringing on the co-founder and CEO of Disco, an AI-first learning and community tool. And we're going to be talking about her story as a very successful entrepreneur, starting as an early team member in a company that went on to service over 100 million users and selling for $1 billion. And now talking about her story of founding and scaling Disco. Beyond that, I do want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the news this week because, again, it's just crazy. We have Replit teaming up with Microsoft to bring vibe coding to the enterprise workers. We also have Bolt completing their hackathon where they had over 100,000 submissions for this, which was incredible. And there are reports saying that Lovable is raising significant amounts of money of like $120 at $1 billion valuation and reaching something along the lines of like 30 million website visits per month. It's crazy, the attention and the money that AI coding platforms are getting today. And also, it's finally living up to the hype that we hoped no code would have years ago, where, no code with the early premise of taking anyone non-technical and allowing them to build things. And that was totally true. But there was still a lot of learning that went with no code. And the time to take to create something was longer than actually what we're seeing with AI coding today, which is kind of strange because the value prop for no code used to be speed. And now it actually is not a value prop anymore because of how fast AI coding is allowing you to build. Now, it is more complex. You're dealing with full source code, Git, deployments, RLS security, all that kind of stuff. But the promise that it's delivering on and the impact that it's making to the broader public, 30 million website visits a month for one of these tools, cumulatively raising over $1 billion. Vibe coding is here. The name isn't great, but I think it's going to stay. It has never been a better time to be learning the latest AI skills. If you look on the job market, AI enablement, AI solution architects, those are some of the hottest titles in job market today. And you can learn so much of those skills by tuning into this podcast, by taking some of my courses, and just by generally trying out all of the free resources that are available on YouTube, LinkedIn, and any other platform today. I think the biggest thing is just be willing to learn, be willing to be open to new things, and AI will allow you to do so much more. There's a term co-intelligence going around, and I think the idea behind that is just you're better with an AI sidekick than without, and those that know how to leverage this are seeing huge success and are going to continue to be relied upon for their companies and this industry going forward in many, many years to come. So it's a really exciting time. I can't wait to talk more about it with Candace. So why don't we bring her on to the show and get started with our interview for today. And here I am with Candace, the co-founder and CEO of Disco. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
It's great to have you here. Thanks for taking the time. We would love to learn a little bit more about you and the platform that you're building. Can you start with giving us a quick background on yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, always being a tech entrepreneur and innovator. I'm originally from South Africa, just to go all the way back. I moved to Canada when I was 15, and I say your first step in entrepreneurship is immigration. You got to create something from nothing. And then, started my career in strategy consulting, but quickly realized I wanted to create companies, not decks of paper. I've been doing this for the past 25 years. And my previous company was a consumer facing app called Wattpad. I joined really early. We scaled it to 120 million users, and we sold it for $1 billion. So it was a huge success. I wasn't the founder, but I was very early, the first non-technical business person. And
Wow.
it was a wild, wild journey. And one of the things that really resonated was just how possible it is to create a globally transformative platform. And I think you kind of have to have a little bit of that to sort of give me the courage to go and do it again. But the way we started Disco was really interesting. It was the pandemic, and made some lemonade from lemons. We were all at home, and we're all in the Zoomification of our lives. And one of the things we realized is my co-founder and I, would never taken an online course before. And we're like, why is that? Like, what is it about, the state of online course software that, made us not want to take it? And it just wasn't very engaging. It was incredibly boring. Completion rates were super low. We realized we're not alone in this. And we started to realize that like the number one thing that makes learning great is when we learn with and from other people. And we started to build a platform that allowed for virtual live cohort-based learning. And that really does lead to transformations. It's a much more proven methodology to actually get traction. But what we realized is that it's just so labor intensive and manual to create really compelling programs. And you know that. I know you create a lot of courses and have, a lot of experiences. And what we soon came to realize was, wow, AI is going to be mind-blowing for the way companies, do upskilling and team training and learning. And, it was actually a good problem to have, that it was typically very hard and difficult to create really engaging learning experiences. And so AI was a complete game changer. And so we started investing very heavily in our AI first learning platform, which I'll go into more detail. But yeah, always been interested in tech, played many roles, built a corporate innovation and venture arm, helped scale a consumer startup, been on the boards of multiple AI first companies. I'm a venture partner in a Silicon Valley based Series A firm. So yeah, love innovation and very interested in the future that we seem to be finding ourselves in today.
Wow, what an incredible story from an immigrant coming to Canada to being part of a huge company that sold for so much money. It's incredible. Before you started Disco, were you at Wattpad, and did you like leave to start Disco, or were you taking some time away?
Yeah, so I took a little bit of time after Wattpad. I think, when you go through that much growth and that much scale that fast, you sort of need to reset. And I actually really recommend that to people is, instead of just like jumping from one thing to another, like create space in your life so that you can actually reset, but also see patterns and see things differently. And I guess my background was in strategy consulting, and I'm just somebody who likes looking at, I'm a generalist, so I like seeing different patterns. And it was from actually taking that space that I think it was so clear to me when we started Disco that there was a bunch of really important first principles that were going to change the future of how we work and learn forever. And, one of the things I actually did in that time period was start a micro fund. So I saw 3,000 early stage companies and partnered with a family office to do a pre-seed fund. And at the time, Toronto was a really interesting place for AI. Jeffrey Hinton is from here. Most of the AI leaders at the very large companies actually come from a lot of the research labs at U of T and Canadian companies. And so the talent that was in this ecosystem was phenomenal. And so it sort of built a really clear and robust thesis around AI in the time that I left Wattpad and then started Disco. That certainly has helped us significantly, both in terms of attracting talent, but also having a very clear thesis on how this is going to change work.
Yeah. During that time off from Wattpad, were you just thinking about what you could do next? Was it like that stage of entrepreneur of just like, what am I going to do? And you look at everything as opportunity. Was it kind of like that for you?
It's so funny because I actually thought I was just going to go into venture. Like I thought I was done operating for a while. Okay. And so that's what I did is I had this, Factory Ventures, a micro fund, and was looking at a lot of deals, talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, and actually was in the process of raising a pretty large fund during COVID. And what was funny about that is like, I'm an emerging manager. So to raise like $25 million is not easy, but I had a lot of soft commitments. And then COVID happened, and like, that's the first thing to go, right? Like I just got call after call saying like, you have great track record, looks awesome, but we just got to put this on ice for the next
foreseeable
6 to
future.
12 months.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is my co-founder and I, we've always wanted to work together. And so all we did for about a year and a half was create decks of products and companies that we wanted to build together. And it was such a passion project. And it was, I really tell this to a lot of founders, is like, pick your co-founder very, very wisely, right? And actually like date before you get married. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And funnily enough, we were actually building, you're going to laugh when I say it, a tea company as a passion project before, because I thought I can have a tea company and, be an venture. And we were just about to hit go on buying the tea supplies. And then that company called us and said, just so you know, we're going to have like major delays because the entire world is being shut down. And we looked at each other and said, do we really want to build a physical company? All we've ever done is build digital products. And this is like the single biggest moment in the history of the world that like digital products are the only thing that's working right now. And that's, when we looked at each other and said, look, what do we love? We love lifelong learning. And let's build a company that has a legacy and is doing something really impactful in the world that we can, I always say, like, pick a problem you really care to solve versus like, just something that you think is like perfect, because chances are your first bat is not going to be what it is. You're going to be really interested in solving that problem. And that's really played out. Like, we love the work we do. We've hired like the best and the brightest people in the world because of the impact we have, right? Like, learning is a pretty amazing lever for change in the world. So it attracts a certain kind of person that I just feel very lucky to work with.
That's awesome. Entrepreneurs are a funny kind of person in the sense that the pandemic is happening and many people see, oh no, what's going on? And we see opportunity of like, okay, yes, of course this is terrible, but there's so much opportunity here. How can we strike, kind of thing? And so that's a mindset that takes some training. But what I want to know is, how were you able to pick Disco as the one to move forward? Like, what were maybe some internal things that you were like, okay, it has passed X, Y, and Z. We are now ready to get beyond the deck stage. You were exploring many different decks. This is something that I and many other entrepreneurs struggle with, is like, we have so many ideas, but like, how do we know when it's ready to take the next step?
It's like the market told us, right? Like, it was amazing what happened in the early stages of Disco. I think, first of all, it was timing is everything. So after, I sort of have this privilege of like being on both sides of the table. I've seen a lot of deals, and I've invested in a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm an entrepreneur myself. And I think, like, there's a lot of great ideas that just are never amount to anything. And I think a big part of it is the like, why now? What is it in the world at this moment in time that is like giving you I always get tailwinds and headwinds confused, but giving you the tailwinds for success? And I think it was really two things for us, right? One, there was this massive behavior change. Every single person in the world was being like trained that they can actually be virtual and collaborate. Like, just think about that. Like, it wasn't like that before. Like, of course there was the odd person, but this was like massively game changing, right? For the way we work, and hybrid teams and remote teams were going to become very real. And so you just need to fast forward and say, like, well, what does that do to learning? It means that like the learning infrastructure is also going to need to change. And one of the elements of that learning infrastructure that needed to change was the idea that you could have some live or synchronous interactions and asynchronous, but it was going to be more social. It was going to actually be much more engaging because we were all able to have this virtual element. And the platforms just don't exist like that. If you look at learning software, especially like in companies, right? It's really, really old school. It's like old platforms, antiquated UI, very difficult to actually program. Like, they have like full languages that you have to create files in that are like hours and hours of work. And we just said, like, there has to be a better way. This has to be like much more engaging, and we have to focus on the transformation. Like, is this a better way for people to learn things? And so that, we tried it ourselves. Like, I actually had a learning program that is sort of like what you're doing here, that I started in the pandemic, fully out of passion, called the Game Changer series. And there were live sessions and thousands of people were showing up and wanted to engage and collaborate. And so we kind of built it a bit for ourselves and then realized there's a much bigger market, instead of focusing on creators, in organizations who want to run training programs and learning programs and need far more modern and robust tooling to make it actually engaging, collaborative, and drive results.
That's a great segue into Disco. Tell us a little bit more about it and the benefits that it offers.
For sure. So Disco today is an AI-first learning platform. And what we are able to do is twofold. For anybody who is running a learning program, right? And so this could be L&D consultants, people officers, but also, revenue leaders or customer success leaders in a company. We make it super, super easy for you to build learning programs that actually deliver results. And what we've done that has been like the real game changer is you could take any IP or even just like sets of prompts and instantly create a learning program using our AI. And while you can do this in, other generative tools like ChatGPT, et cetera, we actually make this all production ready, right? So you don't need to get this output and then all of a sudden convert it into a beautiful learning experience. It's done all in our platform for you. And it's incredibly trustworthy, because I think one of the things that people, in terms of where people are at, we know that LLMs are great, but they also hallucinate. You also have to have quality control. You also have to have, like security and checks that this is actually what you're intending. And so our platform is just a really, really great way to build trustworthy learning programs. So it's AI drafted, human approved. You have that human layer. The learning programs themselves are, the way you want them. It could be asynchronous learning programs. It could be live cohort-based learning programs. It could just be micro lessons. Okay. And we've put it in a platform that is a very modern UI for learners. And so, half of the key to getting engagement in learning programs is a great UI. And I think just the same way as people came to expect live elements of learning programs, they've come to expect conversational learning with AI as a part of learning, like the ability to ask questions, the ability to go deeper on any topic, the ability to use the AI to actually connect them with other people who may have knowledge. So it's just a very forward learning experience for both the team member and for the operator. And it's all in one. A lot of platforms, you kind of author in one tool and then you create the experience in another. Ours is just like instant, like you can author and generate the learning experience all in one.
Very cool. How long did it take you to build the platform? So you had the idea, it was pandemic, 12 to 18 months kind of thing to get up and running?
So it actually, the first iteration, right, that wasn't as focused on like the AI elements, like the AI elements are truly the game changer, because now you have speed and cost trending towards zero for personalized and engaging and updated learning that was just impossible to do before. Like literally people use our platform now to create, learning programs for every department or every person in their company or for any use case. And you can update them all the time. So like it's sort of gone in stages. Like the first stage was, how do we have just more collaborative live learning in the platform? And that version took us about like 6 to 12 months to get like a robust platform out. The next version was getting it like company and enterprise ready, which is always a little bit longer. So another like 6 to 12 months. And while we were doing that, we're investing very heavily in our AI native and AI first operator products and then the learner facing experience. So overall, we've been doing this for 4 years. And it actually worked like massively in our favor that we had a really modern architecture and experience. Like what people say is like Disco's like the Apple of learning experiences. People find tremendous delight in learning in the platform. So we built that container. And because we built that container, it saved us a tremendous amount of time just getting all the table stakes that you need for learning. Like you need pathways and certificates and all these different things that you may want in your program. We had all of that while we invested in the AI versus AI companies, it's just harder to get all those table stakes that you kind of need in order to be able to deliver on like solving the problem that, companies have.
Yeah, and I can only imagine that this has maybe never been a better time in the world with so much transformation coming with AI in every single industry. Everyone needs to upskill. I recently spoke to a dean of education at a college that leads their AI initiatives, and he's like, everything is changing. The time it takes to learn new skills is changing. 4-year degree programs don't really make sense anymore if we can learn it in, a quarter of the time and everything. And so it's such a good time for education.
You hit the nail on the head. I actually saw a little bit of that interview, which is great. I'm like, I need to talk to this guy. It looks like he's doing great work. And we work with lots of interesting organizations like that. So, but you're hitting the nail on the head, because what's fascinating about this moment in time is that if you ask somebody, are they willing to rethink their learning platform like 24 months ago? Yeah, there'd be a couple people who are sort of willing to rethink that. But I'm always like, something has to be 10x better in order to actually make the switch, because it's like huge migration costs and it's very sticky, right? But like the fact that like AI upskilling is now like literally existential for companies, right? Like unless you have people who are upskilled on how to use AI and to navigate this like evolving landscape, you can't have learning that is like stale or out of date or not actually delivering the transformation. So it's not just like check the box, I've learned something and I can say I'm compliant with it. It's like I actually need to build real skill. I need to have a real transformation. And so it went from like a couple people maybe rethinking their learning platforms to like everybody in the world is looking for learning platforms that can give you that agentified, experience to save you cost and save you time, and is looking for that modern conversational AI first learning experience and has a real need. And so, going back full circle to like, what do I think makes great businesses? It's all about timing. It's like, do you have the right solution to solve a problem at the time when somebody needs it? And so I agree. I think it's a wonderful time. And there's so much opportunity, not just for Disco, but for anybody looking at how can we help people learn better, faster, and more like in a more engaging and real way, as opposed to, old school, just consumption-based learning.
Was there an inflection point at any time in the company history where you were like, oh, this is actually really working? Could you talk us through maybe what that might be?
Oh, for sure. I think when we started to focus on organizations who had there's real cost and real time to build great learning programs and keep them updated and make them personalized. And like when we switched our focus to companies where like we were really solving pain, right? Like it wasn't a vitamin, it was like an actual painkiller. And I would say that was about like 18 months ago, and we've been growing like very significantly ever since. And I'd say the other real inflection point has been when we really started to productize our program generator. We took all of these insights and actually are able to deliver on, a real value proposition of you can deliver updated learning programs, you can deliver personalized learning programs, and you can do it at like truly a fraction of the cost and time pre an AI agent helping support you.
If for those out there that are wondering, do I need an AI training program or do I need any kind of training program? What might you say to them about using Disco for the first time or taking that leap to like trying it out?
Yeah, like, absolutely give it a shot. And, the curriculum generator is like incredibly powerful. And little sneak peek, we're going to launch like a really, really big update to our curriculum generator in September. And so give us a shout and you should 100% experience, you'll feel it when you experience it, right? Like it is a bit of a magic factor when you're like, wow, I just gave in this source documentation and it generated a really effective learning program. And I can do that for different segments of my company or different skill groups or different roles. Like you start to see how powerful it is. And also, I think the interesting thing about learning is it's not one size fits all. You have different kinds of learning that you want to offer in your company. And you want to have that mix of synchronous events and asynchronous content to make it easy, and micro lessons, and people learn best through projects, like being able to do stuff. And so you want a platform that can have a variety of modalities that actually gets you to deliver the outcomes you're looking for, versus having everything in different places and scattered. Like anytime you add friction into an environment, your drop-off rates become a lot lower. So just having everything there. And I think one of the interesting things about AI too is, you can have now a space and a community for your company, and all of your old, Zoom recordings, or if you had demo days, or if you had content, is all like now a knowledge repository, which can be, query-based learning too. Like sometimes the best form of learning is the ability to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just having a modern space that can help you do this in your company is pretty game changing for organizations. Like our philosophy is, shared learnings drive growth. And so the more you can have platforms that give your learners personalized learning and learning that's relevant to them, and you can share those learnings in your company, you're going to see the impact of that.
Let's take a different approach for a second. There's so many people and organizations that are trying to figure out how to use AI today. And then within those orgs, there might be a couple that are like rise to the top of, they've adopted AI, they've learned how to use it. And maybe they're not like AI pros or experts or anything, but the org recognizes them as like one of the AI enablers. And now this org has asked that AI enabler to help train other people in their org, right? What steps could you give this AI enabler of like figuring out like maybe some OKRs or some kind of way to say like, we're going to put this program together. We're going to try Disco. Here are some key results that maybe we could expect, or maybe how do
I think about it? Yeah,
sure. Exactly.
So I love this topic, and it's actually one of my favorite topics to be talking about right now. I do a workshop, so I'll just share. But it's a free workshop if you guys want to. Anybody here, you're welcome to join. Really going from like AI aware to AI fluent in organizations, right? And I think there's a couple of things I want to call out about this, right? One, I love how you described it. So you said like taking your AI enabler, right? And I think this is like a really big thing, because not your company, like not everybody is that AI enabler. It's a couple people who you really want to enable and equip, right? To be the influencers that drive this agenda. And then there's a bunch of people who will align, right? But they need like really clear guardrails to align. And then there's the people who will never get on board. And you have to make some decisions about those people. But I do sort of fun little heuristic that or sort of visual that you can think about. Have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so definitely aging myself by sharing that. But it's an interesting framework of like an old idea in sort of personal growth or self-actualization. Like you need your basic needs met, like survival. And as you go up this pyramid, you get into like self-actualization and growth, etc. And so we kind of put together this framework at Disco around your content stack and learning program stack for AI fluency. And so like foundational, right? If I was advising, is like everybody in your company needs to understand what AI actually is. I would say, like, people think AI is magic. It's not magic. There's different kinds of AI. And you actually, in order for people to use this well, they need to understand what it is they're actually doing. So foundations, right? AI 101, what's machine learning? What's an LLM? What's generative AI? Foundation 2, ethics. How do I need to think about using this? Really, really important. It's often an overlooked step, but at the end of the day, your people need to be accountable for the work they produce using this AI. That's like not always fully grasped. Like, your AI's written your memo, but you're still responsible for the words in that memo. Number 3 is like basic application. So I think the single most important skill people need to still learn today is prompt engineering, because quality in, quality out, garbage in, garbage out. And then I think another foundation is just your company point of view. So this is general programming, right? That I would feed in source data and prompts into Disco for each one of these, right? As foundational programs. What's interesting is that as you go up this curve, as you go up this pyramid, I guess, you start getting into actually this very specific role in team-based use cases and workflow use cases. And this is where it gets really interesting, in my opinion, is like, in order for you to start actually getting the advantage of AI in your company, you should be personalizing and generating programs for your marketing team, for your engineering team, specifically for your designers. And what's so amazing today is you can generate these programs just through prompt templates, right? Through really, really effective prompt templates that have the KPI. And a big part of it is learn from your peers. There are people who are doing amazing things in the world. Make sure you have those peers as role models. Same thing with workflow tools. Like, unless you're using these tools to their full advantage, you're not going to get there. I think what's often overlooked when it comes to AI fluency and sort of that goal of co-intelligence is you actually need really strong, durable skills. So I don't know if you know the word durable skills, but used to be called soft skills or power skills. It's like the skill of like discernment or critical thinking or creativity. Like, these are things that, like, don't overlook these in your organizations. You should 100% be making sure your people have those skills to use these tools effectively. And then I think you get into like the really interesting stuff, which is, how do I actually achieve like scale and efficiency growth, right? Like, how do I scale my company that only has 30 people as if we were 100 people? How do I create more value, using this technology that's actually more human first, I like to say. Like, this gives you the opportunity to be more human in your company and your products and your people. And then, like, ultimately, I do see this ultimate goal on this pyramid of like co-intelligence, right? How am I working alongside it as a company and as an employee to like truly get, insights and co-intelligence really that's coming out of it. So I don't know if that's helpful, but it's like an interesting way to think about AI fluency and all the different types of programs you can generate. And this isn't just one program, it's like multiple programs. And ultimately, the ideal goal is that you have a personalized program for every employee based on their role, based on their understanding, based on the areas that they need to work on, that's available to them to help them become AI fluent.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time. Things are changing so much across the industry. Let's segue a little bit to you as an entrepreneur, because you have a tremendous background, and there's so many entrepreneurs listening to this show. Do you have any advice for entrepreneurs that are trying to find opportunity in this moment, in this world of AI? Things are changing so much. What advice may you give to them?
I love when entrepreneurs solve problems for themselves. I think it's like, you understand your problem really well. Start small. Like, you don't need to start huge. You need to start like really small, and like small things compound, right? And so it's okay. Like, it really validates that you can solve a problem. Like, when we really realize that we can generate really robust learning programs in our own company, and we can go from like AI aware to AI fluent very quickly. And like all of a sudden you're like, holy, like this really works. And then you also have that conviction, right? Like I think as an entrepreneur, it's a felt sense when people like really believe that there's value there. And the single best way to offer that value is to have experienced that value yourself. So that would be one piece of advice, I think. The other piece of advice is, what the technology can do today versus where it's going is really, we're at the beginning of like a transformation and revolution of nothing of its proportion. And so, that's hard sometimes for people to like absorb. But somebody, I always love this, is like, somebody has to do these great things in the world. Why not make it you? Like that, it's like, I think what that really showed me that is like, if you had asked me early in my career if I'd be a part of a startup that had 120 million people using it, and I'm not sure I would have easily said yes, but like, why not, as opposed to why, So sometimes you just got to bet on yourself and on the opportunity. And, nothing happens like overnight, but things do happen exponentially. Like if you have network effects in your product, if you're thoughtful about how you build things, like that kind of exponential growth truly is possible.
Look, not every company goes up, unfortunately. Some just don't. What advice may you have for that person that they're working on a startup and it might just be time for them to try something new? Maybe one of your portfolio companies, you might have seen, a similar trajectory, and it's like the opportunity cost of still doing this is maybe starting to be greater than, not doing it and trying something new. What are some like things that we could be aware of when, a company might not be taking the next step and you're kind of still holding on to it, but unsure if you should, go forward with it or not? Is there anything that we should look out for?
Oh, 100%. I think like the enemy of great isn't terrible. It's just mediocre, right? And that's an important thing, is like, what's your opportunity cost of you knocking your head against the wall? And sometimes, sometimes you just need like a perspective shift, right? Like maybe it's like, if you look at how many of like some of the greatest companies came to be, you look at Slack, or you look at like, they weren't trying to build a communication platform. They're trying to build a gaming platform. But the one aspect that was working or that they were interested in was communication. So sometimes you kind of have to sort of squint at what you're doing and see like what is actually working. And maybe that's something that I learned very well at Wattpad, which was, instead of focusing on what isn't working, focus on what is working and pour fuel on that fire. And that's really interesting, right? Because like we're tuned to focus on everything's a crisis. And I think as I, got into entrepreneurship more and more, you realize that like startups are chaotic. Most things actually don't work, and you don't need everything to work. You need like one or two things to work really well, and you need to like keep compounding those things. So for us, it was like program generation, right? And making sure we can deliver engaging learning experiences. Like, we also had like a big community aspect of our platform, and it still exists. Like you can still do certain things, but you don't need to have everything. You don't need to have the kitchen sink. You need to have a couple of things that solve people's problems, that actually eliminate pain, not just vitamins. And you need to compound those things. And so to the entrepreneurs where it's not working, it's okay. Like maybe it's a hard thing to tell somebody to stop, but it's also important to say what is working and how can I try double down on that element of what I'm doing.
Yeah, well said. As we approach the end of the interview here, I wanted to ask, or take a step back, and just generally AI. Do you have any predictions or thoughts or any kind of comments on where it might be going, where education with AI might be going? Like, as you said, things are moving so quickly, and there's so much opportunity. where do you think, as you're guiding Disco forward in the next couple of years, where is education going to be? Yeah.
I love the question. So I would say a couple things. One, um, we're still in a phase right now where, like, for good reason, by the way, like there's a lot of hallucinations in AI today. There's a lot of uh, data issues, transparent, like it's actually wrong information. Like, just to be really clear. So, you know, the confidence level we have to have like AI only sort of learning systems without like human involvement,
Mm-hmm.
I think is very low and is very dangerous, actually. Like, I would not suggest that in organizations, um, because you, as an employee and as a company, are literally held accountable to the work that you are generating and are consuming, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think we're going to get better and better, right? In terms of accuracy and transparency and the ability to have trusted AI. And
Mm-hmm.
so the way I see this is like today, it's like AI drafted, human approved. I think I see a world where, like, in every organization, right, we just have like a perpetual coach for an employee that's like helping you upskill on the areas you need to upskill on to do great work. And the
Mm-hmm.
same for companies. And it's got your context of your company and the context of your employee. And it's like a perpetual learning program. And it's like giving you real projects and real world, feedback to make you better. And we're not there yet, but I 100% see we're going to go from, you know, like one and done learning programs to continuous upskilling in the modes that actually are the modes that work for you, right? Like, you may like to learn through audio and through, role playing with your AI, and I may like to learn through like doing a project collaboratively. So it's just going to get more and more personalized to drive your outcome, to drive that engagement.
Well said.
Um, yeah, I would say like that's certainly like a big one. And I just think it's going to get better and better and better.
Yeah, it's amazing to think where ChatGPT was just a couple of years ago to where it is today,
Yeah.
and where it's going to be in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that. So
I would say one more thing on this, I do think that the companies, I'm very, very big on this. I think a lot of companies miss this, is there are organizations who are thinking about AI as a human replacement. And I think that part of that statement is true. If the work you're doing in your company is easily replaceable, you will likely be replaced. However, if you think about the talent in your company as evolving and growing and building new sets of capabilities in conjunction with this AI, so sort of AI is their superpower to do and help you generate more value for your customers, more scale and efficiency, then you become indispensable to your organization. So it's the companies that actually use AI to upskill their human potential to use AI better that are going to be the companies that really, really, really thrive in this new future, versus the ones that think about it in a very finite, static way, that I just used AI to replace the people, but I never actually focused on the next version of what my company and sort of talent layer looked like. And so that's my highest hope, is that the companies that invest in putting in the work to upskill their people and the platforms to orchestrate work with AI are going to be the companies that really thrive in this future.
well said. Candice, for those that want to get started with Disco, where can they go to learn more?
Absolutely. So check out disco.co and give our program generator a try. And we're very excited to get your feedback and have you see Disco in action.
Thanks for joining us today. What an incredible interview. You had to enjoy that. It was a great story, not only building Disco, but just general entrepreneur advice from someone that has, started venture funds, helped so many people accelerate companies, had success with their own companies, all that stuff. So we do have a 10-minute demo showcasing Disco in action that we're going to play for the next 10 minutes. And that will be our leaving cue. So before we do that, I just want to quickly say thanks for tuning in. I hope you had a great week. I hope this was a great episode. And I hope that you're excited to stay for the demo as well. Otherwise, I will see you next week on This Week in No Code. Have a great one, guys. Keep learning. Stay curious. The world is yours. Let's get on with the demo.
Let's build a high-impact learning program using Disco's AI curriculum generator. To start, you'll go over into the Learning tab, which you can relabel to anything you want. In this case, we've called it Courses. You can select the plus action and select to add product. From there, we've got some templated options. You can either start with a blank canvas, use the cohort-based course, which will include things like events and discussions, or use a self-paced course, which will focus on the curriculum, or use an event series, which will focus on a collection of events. For this case, I'm going to select to build a cohort-based course, and I'm going to start by giving it a title. Call this one AI Fundamentals for Marketing. You can give it a brief description, select who has access to this, what the duration is that you're going to want to start, and select to save the draft. Once you've created your program, we've set up a bunch of things behind the scenes, but you can get started by jumping into our AI curriculum generator. We'll hit Generate Curriculum, and up will come an area where we can insert a prompt. We'll include a really robust prompt in here, which outlines who the course is for, the overall flow that it should follow, a little bit about the tone and style of the course, and some suggestions around the modules and lessons that we want to include. We can start to configure the actual sources that are going to inform how this course is created. So in this case, we've toggled on the web search, and we can also choose to either attach content that already exists inside of Disco, or we can attach new media, upload files, and add specific links. In this case, I'm going to start with a web search, and I'm also going to choose to upload one specific file. So I'm going to bring over a AI fundamentals playbook that I have right here. From there, I've got my sources in there, I've got my prompt, and I will hit to generate. It's going to take us into the Canvas UI, where through a chat interface, we can start to have a dialogue and create our curriculum outline. The curriculum outline will show up on the right-hand side, and from there, we can start to edit and control what goes into that curriculum outline, either through follow-up prompts inside of the chat interface or through actually selecting elements over on the right-hand side. You can see on the left-hand side at the beginning of the chat, we've got our prompt in here, and it'll include the sources that are being uploaded. It'll start building out the preview and letting us know once it's ready. Once it's ready, the curriculum preview will show up over here. So it'll include a little bit of the preview details, showing us that there's 5 modules, 10 lessons, 3 assignments, and 2 quizzes. We can see the overall structure here with our module outline and the individual lessons, quizzes, and assignments that are going within here. As I stated, you can start by having some follow-up prompts in here to actually, add additional things. For example, I can add a quiz into module 2. And that will regenerate the new preview. It'll include each of the previews along in the chat, so you can always go back to previous versions of your preview and make refinements based off of that one. And there we have it. So it's regenerated my module 2 and included a curriculum down here. You can also jump into these individual lessons, and so I can choose to edit the lesson and have a more tailored prompt over that particular lesson if I want to fine tune and tweak what the actual output is going to be on that one. Once everything is ready to go and I'm really happy with my curriculum outline, I can select to generate curriculum. Then behind the scenes, it's going to start building out the entire curriculum. That includes the modules inside of Disco with the individual lessons, assignments, and quizzes. Within each of those objects, you'll see the actual lesson content, the actual quiz content, and assignment content. From there, you can continue to refine and edit. Once it's completed, you'll see all of your modules show up right here. So you can see we've got our welcome module and then our other modules that showed up in the preview. When we click into that module, we'll see the lessons that were generated along with the quiz. So we can then from here click into the lesson and we'll see all the content that was generated inside of this lesson. And we can start to add additional things from here. Once you get into the actual content, we have a very simple drag and drop WYSIWYG style editor that allows you to add additional blocks with different text formatting options, images, videos, various different attachments to other things that exist within Disco, or there's a collection of embeds that can be added in here as well. Up at the top, I can add a cover image or add a cover video. So for this one, I'm going to select to add a cover video, and I'm actually going to drag and drop and bring in a video that I want to showcase up at the top of this lesson. Once the video is generated and in here, then I can start to generate the video assets with AI, which is going to create the summary, the chapters, and the transcript. If I go into the quizzes, I can see that it's generated the little quiz description right here, and I can go in and edit the individual questions that have been asked and answers. I can also create additional options with AI and continue to expand from there. Once I'm done, I can select to save and wrap up my curriculum. If I do want to add more items afterwards, I can always go in to add more content pieces inside of Disco and select one of the options here, or continue to generate more lessons with AI. I can also choose from existing content. So within Disco, you're able to take the same lesson and actually apply it throughout several different courses that are happening throughout your team. Outside of the curriculum, I can continue to design the program with various different apps. So in this case, since it's a cohort-based course, I've included an events app, which will showcase a bunch of events that are happening as the cohort progresses. I can add a feed app where I can post announcements week by week as the course goes on. I can have a collection app where I can put evergreen resources and extra reading materials that people can go and consume on their own time. And I can create discussion channels for continuous discussion happening throughout the cohort. All of this can be controlled through our custom page dashboard, which can be tailored through a series of blocks. This is the page that members will land on as they get into the experience, and it'll showcase things like upcoming events, the curriculum that they should jump into, posts, and those channel messages. These blocks can all be configured, and you can add additional blocks to curate this experience the way that you want to. For example, in this cohort, I might want to gamify it a little bit by adding in something like a leaderboard. So I can select to add a leaderboard block, select my option, in this case being a carousel, and then drag it in, which will add the leaderboard block. Once this has been built out, you can see in here, in a more built out experience, it'll showcase all of the events, all of the curriculum items, and again, the posts, the channels. So this is what it would look like once it's been more complete and full. If I want to take this new course that I generated and create more for other departments across the team using a similar curriculum, I can actually just take this and choose to clone this particular course, but maybe make it for sales. So I can take all of the same settings, all of the same content and events, and duplicate this, and then from there, refine the content. It'll ask me if I want to change any of the events for this, but I can select to continue and clone. There we go. Now I've got my second one created. I've got AI fundamentals for marketing and of course AI fundamentals for sales, and I can continue to just refine the one for sales to fit the sales use case. Inside of Disco, can launch these programs in just minutes instead of weeks, using either your existing content or leveraging content from the broader web.